What is happening out there, Roto Scouts basketball fans? Took me a second there. Had to remember what sport we were on. Covering 4 sports today up at the site. Hopefully some people are trickling into the room. Looks a little empty right now, but I know we'll get some people here showing up. Know there are other basketball shows live right now. This is not the window of time in which I want to be doing this show. This is just kind of how things fell today. So we're going to take a real quick tour on through the basketball slate here. Might end up just talking to myself the whole time. Who knows? We'll see what happens. If you're out there, give me a little hello in the chat. If you're just diving in, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Busy day today. Morning got away from me a little bit. Got to things late. That's why we're doing this. Just kind of jamming it in between with a little bit of time, hopefully to spare, to get some updates in after we're done talking about this slate. Kind of jumping in, I was going to say, between this and the start of a football show that I scheduled for 7:15. That'll be for the showdown slate. Steelers-Giants tonight, or Giants-Steelers, I should say. Ugly Monday night football game, sub 40-point total, but we've got a basketball slate to talk about. I'm going to go real quick through the Vegas lines while hopefully some people trickle into the room here. Boogie's here, Andy's here. What's going on, guys? Appreciate you guys jumping in. So real quick, Pacers, Magic favored by 5.5 at home, 224-point total. Kind of a meh game overall. There are pieces on either side that are usable, but neither one is really providing all that many super appealing pieces as I look through. By the way, it's 9 games on DraftKings and 11 games on FanDuel. FanDuel kept the last 2 games. DraftKings did not. Being nice to us, I guess, just with a World Series game, with a Monday Night Football game, with hockey slate, all that stuff. By the way, all 4 of those sports projected today up at Roto Scouts under $1 a day. If you're new to us, check out the site. Continuing on, Denver and Toronto. Denver favored by 9 in a just smash spot for them. Several pieces from Denver, most notably Jamal Murray looked very, very good. 223-point total in that game, but obviously Denver monster favorites and should just absolutely wax Toronto. Toronto should be getting RJ Barrett back. We've got a number of different questionables. DeAndre Hunter just came off for Atlanta. He's out tonight. I took him out of the projections. He's still in the sim that ran here, so we'll see a little bit of difference. Reshower should be the biggest beneficiary in that situation. He's cheap, but projects out 20, 21-ish kind of points when I reran it. It's up on the site right now, and the projection update is in here. But he's cheap. He'll probably get a little bit popular around that. Hawks favored by 7 at home, 234 points. Juiciest total on the board. Definitely an interesting game. We've got some compelling pieces on both sides of that one. Detroit, Miami, 8.5 points in Miami's favor, 219.5 low end of the slate. Second lowest total on the slate, the 219 points between Houston and San Antonio is the lowest overall. But just kind of another meh spot. If you get a couple pieces of Detroit, fine. We'll see how they math out in the sim that I just ran before. But that game wasn't really jumping off the page. Typically, when we're dealing with a sub 220-point total, you're going to have to really go out of your way to get some pieces. Obviously, the top end guys are, play wherever you slot them in kind of guys, and they're fine. The big men compare favorably to like Cleveland, let's say. Cleveland at the Knicks, close game there, 2.5-point total. Knicks got back on track the other day against Indy, looking to continue that, 222.5. Definitely going to see some pieces and popularity on several of the Knicks. Not sure how much Cavs we'll get to, but we'll take a look. Good one between the Bucks and the Celtics, but the Celtics big favorites at home. Bucks still a little bit banged up. No Chris Middleton. They've looked okay. It's been a little bit of a slow start, let's say. Boston kind of just hit the gas pedal in game 1 and is probably never going to look back. 233-point total, a lot of playability in that one. Chicago, Memphis. Memphis still missing a ton of pieces. They're 7-point favorites at home, though, against the awful Bulls. 233-point total there, usable pieces on both sides. 219-point total in a close one between Houston and San Antonio. Wemby obviously drawing the eye there a little bit. Pieces and parts other than him. Utah and Dallas 12-point favorites. The next one up, Portland and Sacramento at 12.5-point spread in that one. So 2 monster home favorites with the Mavs and the Kings, and makes sense. The Jazz and the Blazers are pretty weak. But 2 very targetable totals there. There are value pieces on all sides. There are star players from the Mavs and from the Kings that are popping up quite a bit. Mostly the obvious names, so you'll see a lot of that one. And then the tail end game, Lakers and the Suns, a 228.5-point total, 4.5 points in the Suns' favor in a home game. Obviously, fairly star-laden name recognition kind of a game there. And that brings us to 550. If you're just joining us, I am trying to get us up and out of here 6:15 to 6:30, somewhere in that window, so that I've just got some time to get this last update in before the slate locks. And then we will be coming back. There's the file I was looking for. We'll be coming back around for football. I've got it scheduled for 7:15. You might have to forgive me if I'm a minute or two late once it actually comes time to it, because I'll still have to run the Sims. But we are going to talk through that showdown slate. It's just going to be a little bit later than usual. I'm not going to play it, so I won't have to worry about getting lineups in, but I am playing this. Only a handful of lineups, so it's not major pressure right now, but I am trying to get it through this quickly and out of here. So you'll see some empty stuff on the side on DK. That's because, again, DK only running 9 games where FanDuel has 11 games. I'm going to sort us by FanDuel's win rate now, so we'll be a little bit bouncing back and forth with the different slates. And I'm going to sort us, I think, by FanDuel's positioning, because otherwise we'll just be missing guys. So bear with me. Not the ideal slate to be doing this when we're trying to get through it quick. Pretty common piece up at the top with Deuce McBride. Gave him 28 minutes, 4,500 on FanDuel, 4,300 on DraftKings. Both guard spots eligibility. Josh Hart, I didn't do the questionables, damn it. Josh Hart, questionable for the Knicks going into at least as of the 4:30. I didn't catch him on the 5:30. Let me do the full run through the injury report real quick. Probables. Deuce McBride himself, the guy we're talking about right now at the top of the board at the guard position on both sites. Giannis is also probable. He's almost certainly going to play. Lonzo's already available. Questionables. Jonathan Isaac, Goga Bitadze, Franz Wagner, who's a game-time decision. Craig Porter Jr., Josh Hart, RJ Barrett, Sam Hauser. We already lost DeAndre Hunter. John Morant, John Conchar, Steven Adams, Drew Eubanks, and Bradley Beal are all questionables. Out. James Wiseman, Max Strus, Precious Chua, Mitch Robinson, Bruce Brown, Aja Thompson, Josh Christopher, Kevin Love, Chris Middleton, Kristaps Porzingis, Sadiq Bey, Malcolm Brogdon, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Onyeka Okongwu, that's a biggie for Atlanta, Cody Zeller, Gigi Jackson, Luke Kennard, Vince Williams Jr., Trey Jones, Devin Vassell, Isaiah Collier, Johnny Juzang, Dante Exum, Maxi Kleba, Jarrett Vanderbilt, Christian Koloko, Christian Wood, Josh Okogie, Orlando Robinson, and Devin Carter are all out. That's all up in the article, by the way, every day. If you're the projections column, if you need it. Power saying Atlanta's now the lock. Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be some good pieces from Atlanta. You can see Trae Young already came up pretty strongly in this one, and this ran with Hunter in there. So I think just on so a little bit of additional opportunity for Trae there, you'll certainly see him. And then I mentioned already, Reshower picked up a handful of minutes. I put him back at the 28 that he played last time with Hunter out. He's cheap, so I think he's going to see a lot of ownership. I don't have how he's going to hit the sim, unfortunately, but I think it'll probably pop him up with pretty big value rates. Yeah, I just was saying, Power, I took Hunter. I already took Hunter out, but these sims I didn't have time to rerun it. That happened just before the show. So Deuce up at the top, looking like a good piece, and I think gains ground if Josh Hart doesn't play. Not exactly like same position, but the Knicks are multi-positional and they move pieces around, so I just think Deuce next man up as far as picking up a few additional minutes, but he's already seeing plenty to get him into half the lineups on both sites and above the field on both sites. So like the opportunity for Deuce McBride there, and I think he could only go upward, not really going to come downward unless somehow he doesn't play. He was probable. Colin Sexton, mentioned there's a handful of pieces. Sexton looks pretty decent at 5,500 on FanDuel. We're getting him at shooting guard and point guard over there. He's a shooting guard only on DraftKings. He comes up a lot less. 47% of our top 150, not way over the field, but over the field on the FanDuel slate. On DraftKings, 6,100, no thank you. 2.67% of the top 150 and below the field over there. Jamal Murray, mentioned him, major piece. You can see him on FanDuel. We've got a red down arrow here, but that's only because we're below the field, despite having him in 46% of the top 150. So it's important to read this correctly. Jamal Murray is a terrific piece. We're just getting him under the field's exposure because there's a lot to work with on the FanDuel slate. On DraftKings is different. 58.6%. We're getting him more than the field. He's going to be super popular chalk of the day. He's just underpriced, really. 71 on DraftKings, 73 on FanDuel. This is a 1.22 per minute guy on FanDuel last year, 1.25 on DraftKings. Nearly a 30% assist rate, 58.6% true shooting last year. Yeah, I'm still talking with some of last year's numbers. We've got the last game played numbers are in the middle here. All the other stats still are last year. I'm probably going to update it for tomorrow, and we'll start talking about this year's point per minute numbers over like 3 games and small samples. But last time out, Jamal was right around a point per minute, 36.9 played, 35.9 FanDuel points returned. More upside than that on the right slate. And again, they're just going to completely smoke this Toronto team. A little bit of blowout risk in the fourth quarter, but I think they've gotten theirs, the stars on that Denver squad if they end up in that situation. Kobe White had a biggie, didn't he just have a good game? Did they play again over the weekend? Is that what I'm catching? I swear Kobe White just had a good game. This is where I trip up when I don't watch games for 2 days over the weekend while I'm focused on football. Did they play again? They must have played again over the weekend and he had a clunker. Yeah, that's what it was. 25th. Yeah, that's right. They had the back-to-back against OKC, so that makes sense. I projected that game. Just bad memory. So, yeah, on the 25th, he put up 58.7 FanDuel points against Milwaukee in 34 minutes. That was mostly scoring-driven. 6 rebounds, 5 assists, though, is not bad for him. He also padded it with 4 steals, it looks like. Played 34 minutes that night. That's the ceiling, pretty much, for Kobe White. You can get that game. I've got him around 32, a little bit under a point per minute type guy. He's a .90 last year, .95 on DraftKings last year. So he's a productive player, but a little bit scoring dependent. We got him a little bit less than the field on FanDuel, 28.6% still. On DraftKings, didn't really get him at all at 7,200. A couple of FanDuel only players, Anthony Simons and Malik Monk. We got to them both in the 20s at or about the field. If you're going in a direction against the field, you go a little bit above on Simons, right around the field, but trending slightly above, it looks like, on Malik Monk. Trae Young, again, looks really solid on both sites. We got him 35% of the time in the with Hunter sim earlier, so he would only go northward in this situation, I think. 9,853 plus DraftKings points. 10-1 on FanDuel, a little bit expensive. We got him 22% and ahead of the field, and I think we gained ground there even with the field picking up additional shares. Freddie VanVleet, 20%. Right around the field, it looks like a little bit under probably. Feels probably 22-ish% against that. On DraftKings, we got him 13% of the time. 1.06, 1.07 across sites. Still a good per-minute performer for 73, 74. Just not a really appealing game. That Houston and San Antonio game, the lowest end of the slate. Don't know what the real ceiling looks like for Freddie right now, but a reliable per-minute guy. If you just need to slot somebody in for around his median, that's a fairly reliable 35-ish points with a moderate ceiling. Devin Booker in that star-laden Lakers-Phoenix game, 16% of them on FanDuel. That's not on the DraftKings slate. Kyrie, interesting piece, 15% on FanDuel. 7,800, both guard spots over there. A little bit cheaper on DraftKings, 75. Cheaper, but not relative to the cap, obviously. 21% of them came up, basically level with the field on the DraftKings slate. Kyrie's a very, very good player. Round a point per minute in their last one with upside for more. Worst case, you're typically getting around a point per minute. He typically doesn't go much further down than that. So not a bad buy at 7,500 on the DraftKings slate. Giddey's coming up a little bit, and I was seeing him in some of the top lineups that I ran through the sim. So just still an interesting piece. 6,300. I reduced his minutes. I had him at 30 minutes in their last couple of games. I took him down to 28. It's about what he's been playing, 26, 28. So we'll see what the upside looks like, but he's still getting there. Just under a point per minute. 26 minutes played the other night, 24.4. That was against OKC. Not my favorite guy to get to. 4.78 in the value score, but again, does come up a little bit and against the field a little bit more. On DraftKings, we did not get Josh Giddey. 0.67% exposure because he's 6,600 point guard only. So a little bit of the flexibility is helping him out, and the lower relative price is helping him out. Chris Paul, interesting enough piece given his skill set. He's only 5,700. We know that Chris Paul can pick up a big assist day. He still plays decent defense. He's a low usage guy now, but there's a lot to do in that San Antonio offense. It's just we're also going to get a lot of games where he's just kind of invisible. 26.5 minutes in their last one, put up 15.5 FanDuel points. We got him ahead of the field. He's a decent value piece. He projects out fairly well. Still going to give us around a point per minute no matter what happens. But just not a real crusher of a piece. On DraftKings, 5,900 point guard only. We barely got to him. Mikal Bridges got back in form pretty quickly when they got to the Garden. Had a decent 31.7 FanDuel points in 33.5 minutes. It's right around his 0.9 and change average from last year. Got him right back in that range. Pretty solid piece. 10% on FanDuel, basically level with the field. DraftKings for 65. We didn't get him at all in the top 150, so obviously a little bit below the field. Doesn't look like the field's aggressively exposed to him, though. Could be Travis smoking an infused joint while he listens to a Roto Scouts basketball show. That does sound like a happy Monday, buddy. I got a nice little bowl packed over there waiting for the end of the football show later on. And then I'll watch my Giants. I'll watch my Yankees. We got the Yanks in desperate mode already in Game 3 of the World Series tonight. That's projected up at Roto Scouts. Check that out if you're playing the Showdown slates. Showdown football. Again, if you weren't here before, 7:15-ish for the football show. Just got to run the Sims, update the dashboard, and then we'll be back for that. But that's also going to be simultaneously while I'm updating basketball. So a lot to do. Not enough time to do it. Let me hit some of the highlights as we go down here. Looks like some handful of all single-digit guys from here down on FanDuel. Remember, we're sorted in the reverse today. Zach LaVine, moderately playable piece on the FanDuel slate, but we got him less than the field. Nembhard comes up a little bit. It's just a value square at 48 on FanDuel. Drew right around the field at 58. Luka didn't really come up on FanDuel, but we did get him on DraftKings, 14.67, basically level with the field for 11.3. On FanDuel at 11.7, didn't really look like a critical piece. Same thing with Jalen Brunson. We didn't get a lot of him on FanDuel, which surprises me. DraftKings a little bit more. Just under 10%, but below the field. De'Aaron Fox didn't really come up on FanDuel despite a strong suggestion, either way. Bradley Beal. Scottie Pippen's one to watch. He could pick up some additional minutes. I've got him at 22 right now, but depends on what happens with those minutes over there. And just the other day, in 22.9 minutes, he put up a monster 39 fantasy points. So he's a pretty relevant value piece. He went up a little bit in price, 5,300. We only got him, in one FanDuel lineup. Didn't get him on DraftKings. But if that projection goes north, that could be one to watch. Russ, Marcus Smart didn't really come up over there. Nobody over here. But we did get 15% of $4,400 TJ McConnell on DraftKings. Looks like it's about level with the field over there. It's a moderate piece, a good per minute guy, but I don't really expect much. I've got him at 18 minutes, and he did hit the board for value, which means if he sees 24 minutes at his 1.29 per minute, he rockets up the board. So he is a piece. He is somebody you can throw into the mix. Again, Luka came up more on DraftKings, and then Stephon Castle, looks like, came up a little bit. 4,000 shooting guard, small forward eligible. That was a curveball. I wasn't really expecting that one. On FanDuel, he came up just 4%. Pull him up on the other tab here. Got him at like 0.76. It's a low. I mean, that's kind of just a free square value spot, it looks like, but that might be a little high on that projection. I wouldn't get carried away with that one. It does look like it's level with his ownership, though, so I mean, it's fine as a value square. Just a little bit of a twist that I wasn't expecting on that low projected, low-end option. We jump over to the forward spot. I think that wrapped up most of the DK guys. I mean, actually, you know what? I can resort by DK now. Yeah, see, this is what's going to happen when we do the DK. Actually, you know what? That's not that bad, though. Because then I can do, like, here's your highlights on FanDuel and then go through it normally. So maybe we'll do that on the for the forwards. So, again, the highlights for DK as far as our top 150. And basically all of these guys were at least with the field. And the top two were above the field. So above the field on Jamal Murray, above the field on Deuce McBride, both well over 50%, 53 of Deuce, 58.6 approaching 60% of Jamal Murray. Trae Young probably climbs. We had him at 35%, 20s or around for Nembhard, Jaden Hardy, Stephon Castle, Kyrie Irving. Hardy we didn't really touch on. 18% basically level with the field. He's only 36. See, to me, that's more of a free square, more of an appealing free square, just because of the additional price savings of 400 that you get there. It is a lower minute guy, but he's a 0.93 per minute player when he does get a little bit of run. Only 18 minutes projected, but a very low cost free square. So those do look like your free squares that are the guard eligible guys on DK today. Everybody else level with or progressively below the field and diminishing shares going down the board. 6:05. See if we can knock out 10 minutes worth of forwards here. All right, so we'll do it this way. If you weren't with us, the board looks ugly because it is a 9-game FanDuel, a 9-game DraftKings, 11-game FanDuel slate. It's taking its time to sort this column for reasons. I'll just start by talking about that guy at the top there. Jalen Johnson, another guy from Atlanta. He's already at 35 minutes, but with the idea of just, more opportunity to spread around there, he only looks better with DeAndre Hunter coming out. There we go. Now he's gone. In the same situation the other day, though, he played just 29 minutes and put up 19.8 FanDuel points. It was a 1.07 per minute player on 18% usage last year on both sites. We got him 26% of the time, basically level with the field on DraftKings, 478. For 8,000 both forward spots, we got a ton of them on the FanDuel slate, 53%. So a lot of upside for that player and a lot of shares of them. Tobias Harris was another biggie, but let's jump back. All right, so the outlier guys from those late games on FanDuel, Devin Booker, who we already talked about for the guard position, 16% of them above the field. Domantas Sabonis is a big piece on FanDuel. 9,800 over there, most critically, power forward eligible on the FanDuel slate. So you can mix and match him with a lot of the high-end centers, or you can just move him around, could create flexibility. And honestly, for 1.38 FanDuel points per minute last season, he put up 62.4 in 36 minutes the other night. That's not a bad price, just even if he was only a center. But I love the eligibility of power forward. They're doing, I believe Wemby had it. Does Wemby have it again? Yeah, he does. So Wemby power forward center, Sabonis power forward center. FanDuel's generous with the multi-position. So that helps out a lot. It takes him away from just being a part of that center-only vacuum. Otherwise, PJ came up 14% of the time, basically level with the field. He's fine. I tend to get a lot of him while he's priced this way, at least over the last few days. Put up a clunker, and he's always going to give you those kind of games, 17 points, basically half a fantasy point per minute. But overall, he masks out to about a 0.87 per minute. He's a playable part, 18 about average usage, and reliable enough minutes. Just never my favorite option, but does come up a little bit on FanDuel. Everybody else in those late games, just kind of skippable there. All right. So back to the board here. In 22 minutes, speaking of Dallas, looks like Najee Marshall is coming up quite a bit. Wait, why was... you know what? PJ probably didn't go through on a naming issue. I didn't catch that. Him and Christian Brown either didn't come up or didn't come through on DK for probably reasons that are my fault. So just be aware of that. Where they land, looks like they probably would have mathed out just even with the field. I don't see anything overly special. Brown for 47, actually, 4.94. Might have gotten into 10-ish% of lineups. Comparable, I'd say, with like a Sohan. And then PJ at 5,000, 5.27. Probably would have been in more. Got to watch out for why those guys wouldn't go through the sim. All right, so picking up Najee Marshall, looking like a free square at 3,400 on the DraftKings slate. Played just 16 minutes the other night. Got him at 22. I'll recheck that. On FanDuel, didn't get him at all. 18 FanDuel points. It's just the very cheap price with the flexibility across both of those forward spots that's keeping him alive for anything, really. 0.86 per minute player. Every now and then he can deliver a little bit of value, but a 15.8% usage guy last year, not my idea of an exciting play, but came up very much as a free square that just buys you other things. Jason Tatum is one of those things that he helps buy you. Tatum, both forward spots, 51 DraftKings points, 30.67% of the field in the top 150 and above the public projected ownership. On FanDuel, we just got 5% of Tatum, but I have no issues with pumping that up a little bit. It's been tremendous to start the season. Had a monster against the Knicks, had a 52.8 night the other night in 38 minutes. Puts him right around his 1.29, 1.30 and change rates. Johnson, we talked about Larry Nance on the board a little bit for just 3,000. That's a potential piece for Atlanta. I don't think he's played yet this season, but he is on the bench. Got him projected for just a couple of minutes, and obviously at the dead min would hit the board a little bit. But I'm going to keep an eye on that spot. Does look like he's a little bit ahead of the field's projected ownership there. 0.87 DraftKings points per minute last year. Not a big projection. Again, he's just a dead min price player on both sites. Aaron Gordon landed in 40% on FanDuel. We also got 40% of Tobias Harris a couple spots further down. Both of those guys a little bit above the field. On the DraftKings slate, Harris below the field at 14%. He's 61, same price, but a different relative cap, obviously. Power forward and small forward on FanDuel. Power forward only probably hampers a little bit of his utility on the DraftKings slate. 14%, we didn't not get him, but that's well below the field. We also are below the field on Harrison Barnes, which I have absolutely no problem with. Barnes is just a low-end per-minute guy. He's 4,600, so I mean he's a minorly viable value guy. 4.57 on the DraftKings salary scale. On FanDuel, the value mark is 3.68 because somehow he costs 5,600 over there. That's a weird price. Paolo cooled off a little bit in their last game, 36.9 minutes, 28.9 FanDuel points, but monster upside on any given slate. Got him around 8-10% on both sides, basically level with the field on both sides. Totally playable, but not flashing a ton of have-to-have him kind of upside. It's a low-end game. Sohan didn't come up on FanDuel. We did get him 10.6% of the time on DraftKings for 5,600. A little bit of upside there, 0.91 DraftKings points per minute last season. He's an okay rebounder. He's an okay facilitator. He's a not great shooter, not great scorer. Not the most reliable per minute player in the world, but also not expensive at 56. So just kind of slotting into a handful of lineups, fair handful of lineups. OG if he plays, Josh Hart if he plays portion of it, 6,100 came up just under 10%, basically level with the field. We got a lot of them on FanDuel, 26%, well above the field because he's 61 both forward spots over there. If Hart doesn't go, maybe benefits OG a little bit as far as a little bit more opportunity, but they're both fairly low usage guys. Hart does a lot of the scrappy work. OG does a lot of that as well. OG can get more involved offensively. So if there's just a vacuum of another 13% usage floating around some of the guys who are going to be playing 38 to 40 minutes for this team, OG could pick up a few additional shots and maybe take himself beyond the typical 0.81 up into the 0.9 kind of territory. He's just looking like who he is, though. 9% on DraftKings level with the field. FanDuel, 33.3% level with the field. Everybody else down this way, either even with the field or below. We have Giannis is in that mix. Giannis, you can always hit the gas pedal on. We got him under 10% level with the field. If you wanted to take him up 10, 15, somewhere around there, no issues with it. On FanDuel, we got him just 3%. No issues taking him up to 10%. We know what the explosive upside looks like. Looks like, given the big point spread in that one and some missing parts for Milwaukee, definitely if they're going to win that game or at least keep it competitive, Giannis is going to have to do his thing. But it's not necessarily a good matchup on any side of that for somebody to just run away with all the scoring. Just two really good teams going at each other. Levine, 8% below the field on FanDuel, 4% below the field on DraftKings. Here's Reshower. So this was Reshower before I moved him up. He already came up at 16% on FanDuel, monster value piece, and he picked up a few additional points. So like I was saying before, I didn't know how he would come through the sim. Now I do. I gave him more minutes. He played 26.9 the other day, put up 28 FanDuel points. I put him back up to 28, call it 26 to 28 minute probability tonight. Love him on FanDuel. He would jump significantly on FanDuel. So that's going to be a monster piece over there at small forward when we rerun. On DraftKings for 42, also would pick up a lot. He was a 4.92 value score there at 1.33% exposure and below the field, but that changes pretty significantly. He's probably mid fives on the value score now. So definitely an interesting guy. Let's see. Where's 41? I don't see a comparable. Yeah, no comparable piece to throw into the mix there. I was going to see if I could find somebody. So, Reshower, definitely somebody to keep in mind. RJ doesn't look relevant to the slate. Alex Sarr is an interesting FanDuel piece. Didn't come up at all on DraftKings because he's 54 over there. 5,000 with power forward and center eligibility. We got him a ton. 31% above the field. Looks like statistically he's Alexander. Had a good value game the other day. Put it that way. I like him to go right back to that spot. 30% basically level with the field on Patty Williams, who looks pretty good at 4,500 from Chicago. Power forward only, but very cheap over there. 0.76 per minute, not a monster per minute player, but just buying some cheap minutes on FanDuel. Looks like it's paying the bills today, so I like that. Just 10% of McHale we talked about. 11% of Scotty Barnes level with the field. No issues with a little bit more. If you get out to like 15%, that's fine. Looks like we're probably like dead level with the field there. Nobody else on DraftKings coming up. It'd be interesting down here that's coming as a... So Siakam, Kuzma, Jared Allen, Jaren Jackson, John Collins, Mikal Bridges. None of those guys were relevant pieces on DraftKings. All basically just priced like who they are. Same thing with Scotty, actually. Scotty didn't come up. That's a little bit surprising. Scotty does have a big ceiling, 1.26 DraftKings points per minute last year. If you want to grab a few shares of him, I have no issue with it, but didn't land in the sim. Those are the biggest guys that didn't land in the sim on DK. Franz Wagner in. Thank you, Steven. Giannis in. Yeah, that was pretty much expected, but good to know. All right. Trying to clock those things mentally. 6:15. Let me jump up to centers here, and then we're going to be out of here. I'm going to get everything updated on the site. I'm going to run lineups. I'm going to run sims for the football slate. Around an hour from right now, 7:15 is when it's scheduled for on YouTube. Show up at 7:15. It'll start within 5 minutes of that, okay? Won't be earlier. Might be a couple minutes late, but we'll dive into the showdown slate. We'll talk real quick through some statistics, and we'll look at some lineup builds. All right, at your forward spot is going to take a sec. So again, Domantas Sabonis comes up as a pretty monster piece on the FanDuel slate nearly 30% of the time, and he does have that flex between power forward and center. As far as other guys who are in those late games, 6% of DeAndre Ayton, he's there if you want him. I basically never get DeAndre Ayton unless it's a really short slate or something significant has happened. Otherwise, nobody in those late games looks like a relevant piece. Nurk didn't land in, you got into 1. It's basically level with the field. AD is a big guy. Is a big guy. Yeah, duh. AD, a significant ceiling, a big fantasy score. Center and power forward eligible as well. 11,000. Looks like he's just getting boxed out for shares. 6% basically level with the field. But another guy with star caliber upside, 57.8 in 37.8 the other day. So if you wanted to take him up 10, 12%, no issues, but not mathing out as one of the best pieces. $4,900 Daniel Gafford, on the other hand, 64% of the DraftKings lineups. Holy hell. Center only over there, center only on FanDuel. We only got him 6% on FanDuel. Just a cheap square. 1.24 FanDuel points per minute, 1.15 DraftKings points per minute last season. Played 18 the other day, put up 21 FanDuel points. It's basically just under that pace. It's more like the DraftKings pace. It's a player that I typically would rather have on FanDuel, I think. Low usage guy, but definitely for that cheap price at 49, coming up a lot and probably one of your pathways to rostering multiple stars. At the same time, we got Jokic at 32.67% for 11-1. So he's our biggest pay-up piece on the DraftKings slate. 11% Jokic on the FanDuel slate. Coming up, it looks like a lot of the stars are kind of coming up basically even on FanDuel. Just something to keep in mind, but looks like a Jokic kind of a day on DraftKings as far as all those super high-priced stars. Jokic and Gafford probably pair in some center util lineups. Wemby, monster per minute guy, 1.71 last year on FanDuel, 1.66 on DraftKings, 44.9 in 30 minutes the other night on FanDuel. We know there's more upside than that. There's 2 point per minute upside on any given slate. He's 11.2 with both power forward and center on FanDuel, 7% level with the field, 10.5 on DraftKings center only. There's a choice to be made there, but we are getting some shares of him, 14.67. So basically it's like a center util play between Gafford, Jokic, and Wemby. I'd be curious, how many got to Wemby and Jokic in lineups. That's an aggressive approach for your money there. Mo Wagner didn't really come up, but at least I know it's Franz. See, already fell out of my head. I said I was clocking it and fell out of my head. Didn't come up on FanDuel, but a relevant piece on DraftKings because he's only 3,800 over there. Not a big projection, sub 5 value score, but came up 9% of the time, basically level with the field. Not a big piece, but a playable one. Clint Capella with Okongwu out. I've got him at 24 minutes, but probably a little bit of additional upside beyond that for him today. He's been playing not a lot of minutes, not closing games. He's just been meh, but did put up 27 FanDuel points in 21.6 minutes. So now that he's down at like value pricing, I do think he's playable. Just consider him like a bench guy that starts. Which is a weird way to put it. But today, maybe a little bit more upside, maybe a little bit more value for Capella, even than we're showing there. Came up 19% of the time on FanDuel. I'm perfectly fine with that. 6.7% of the time below the field on DraftKings. Turner 6% and looks like well below the field on DraftKings, which is weird because he's one of the more interesting pieces from Indy. It's just a low-end game and competing with Orlando's front court. I don't totally love Turner there. 1.20 per minute when he's playing right, though. Horford 5% on DK, Cat 5-ish% and below the field on both those guys. Single digits, declining shares for everybody else. The only interesting guy across sites, center-only Jalen Duren. 14% on FanDuel. He's 64 over there. He's more expensive against the lower relative cap on DraftKings. 6,900, we didn't get him at all. We didn't get any Şengün on DraftKings. That's another big per minute guy that could certainly succeed. But he's kind of pricey at 89. Played just 22 the other night, put up just 20 FanDuel points. 87 on FanDuel, 3%. Sarr, we already talked about, again, looking like a very, very, very playable $5,000 guy. I would wager that most of those come up at power forward. Otherwise, nobody really all that relevant. So with that in mind, as Steven and Power are jumping in and projecting, Magic projected is confirmed. It's good news. One less thing to have to go change. But let me punch out. I'm going to go update some basketball projections, get them uploaded on the site for everybody to use. We'll keep an eye on news going into lock. At the same time, I'm going to be updating the football board. Going to be running some sims for football because we got a football showdown show in a little under an hour. 7:15 is when it's scheduled for. Come on back. Hit that like button before you go. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out rotoscouts.com if you haven't already. Access to all of these projections for all four major sports today. Under $1 a day for access to everything. Check out acemind.io as well. That's what the sims are run on. With that in mind, guys, good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. I'll see you in just a little bit.